Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the November 22nd, 2021 Planning Commission meeting. Recommendations from the Planning Commission on certain items from this agenda will be considered by the Board of Commissioners at the regular meeting on December 7th, 2021 at 10:30 a.m. Please note that the Planning Commission utilizes speaker request forms, which are available in the Commission chambers during the meeting. So the speaker request forms are these. They're in the back of the room. If you are neither the applicant or the agent on an item and you wish to speak to that item, I would appreciate if you fill one of those out. You can hand it in over here at the corner. Keeps me organized here during the meeting and make sure that everyone gets a chance to be heard during the meeting. With that, we'll go ahead and get the meeting started. First item on the agenda is roll call. Just note that everyone is here. First item is approval of the November 8th, 2021 minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, hearing none, I would entertain a motion for approval of the November 8th minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second for approval. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Second item is approval of today's agenda. Today's agenda consists of the consent agenda, which is items 3 through 6, followed by our normal commission items 7 through 13, and at the end of the meeting items 14 through 17. Are there any changes to today's agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion for approval?
So move.
Second.
Motion and second for approval of today's agenda. Further discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. We're on item 3.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brittany Molitor, Planning Director. The following items have been placed on the consent agenda for action to be taken on all items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent agenda by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration. The findings of this planning commission on certain items from this agenda are recommendations to the Pennington County Board of Commissioners, who will make the final decision. Item number 3 is conditional use permit review CU 1930 for Harry and Gail McCain to review the existing residence as a guest house in an agriculture district. Staff is recommending approval of the extension of conditional use permit CU 1930 with conditions. Item number 4 is conditional use permit review CU 1932 for Jeff and Marcia Spilker to review a garage with living quarters to be used as a guest house in a rural residential district. Staff recommends approval of the extension of conditional use permit CU 1932 with conditions. Item number 5 is conditional use permit review CU 2015 for Greg Helgerson to review a single-wide mobile home to be used as a single-family residence in an agriculture district. Staff recommends to continue the review of conditional use permit CU 2015 to the December 13th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting with one condition. And finally, item 6 is minor plat MPL 2175 for Kevin and Jeanette Grover to subdivide and create lots 2R1 and 2R2 of Grover Subdivision. And staff recommends approval of minor plat MPL 2175 with conditions.
Thank you. Are there any items that staff wishes to pull from the agenda?
No, not at this time.
Are there any items that membership wishes to pull from the agenda? Noting none. For those folks in the audience, the consent agenda is items 3, 4, 5, and 6. We'll vote on those items all at the same time, unless you guys would like, unless someone in the audience would like one of those pulled from the consent agenda for separate consideration. Is anyone in the audience here to speak on items 3, 4, 5, or 6? Hearing none, seeing none. Recommendation from staff is approval of today's consent agenda items 3 through 6. Is there a motion?
I move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion? Noting none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. Motion carries. We're on item 7.
Good morning, Commissioner Chutima Sabbun, Planning Department. Agenda item number 7 is conditional use permit CU 2163 to allow an accessory structure prior to a primary residence on the subject property. The applicants and landowner are Curtis and Denise Newkircher. The zoning ordinance lists 7 criteria that the Planning Commission may consider in their review of conditional use permit application. The criteria are on the screen and staff will read the finding. Criteria 1, allowing this conditional use permit should not be detrimental or endanger the public health, safety, and general welfare of the public. Criteria 2, the requested use should not have any long-term negative effects on the use and enjoyment of other properties in the immediate vicinity. Criteria 3, allowing this conditional use permit should not affect the normal orderly development or improvement of any surrounding properties in the area. Criteria 4, access will be via Prospect Road. An approved approach permit from the Prospect Road District is required. Criteria 5, the requested use should not significantly impact traffic congestion. Criteria 6, the property is zoned rural residential district. A shed as a primary structure is allowed with an approved conditional use permit. Criteria 7, the future land use of the subject property is rural residential district. Allowing this conditional use permit is consistent with the current comprehensive plan. The request was routed for an interdepartmental review. No significant concerns or objections were received. Staff recommends approval of conditional use permit CU 2163 with 9 conditions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Does anyone in the audience wish to speak on this item? Hearing none, seeing none, staff recommends approval of conditional use permit CU 2163 with 9 conditions. Is there a motion?
So
So
moved.
move.
Second.
Too quick out of the gate. We got a second there, so we're good. Motion and second for approval. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 8.
Morning, Commissioners. Jason Thennison, Deputy Planning Director. Agenda item number 8 is conditional use permit 21-64 to allow a 12 by 32 tiny home / park model as a primary structure on the subject property. The applicants and landowners are Don and Jane Patno. Location of the property is located at the west end of Log Cabin Road. It is 10.33 acres zoned agriculture district. Access is off Log Cabin Road, and there is no special flood hazard area on the property. The zoning ordinance lists 7 criteria the Planning Commission may consider in their review of conditional use permit applications. They're on the screen, along with staff's findings. I'll read staff's findings, starting with number 1. The requested use should not be detrimental or endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare of the public. Number 2, the requested use should not substantially impair or diminish the uses, values, or enjoyment of other property in the neighborhood for purposes already permitted. Number 3, the requested use should not impede the normal orderly development and improvement of the surrounding properties for uses permitted in the district. Number 4, the existing driveway currently used to access the subject property should be named per emergency services comments. Number 5, the existing approach will provide ingress and egress as to minimize traffic congestion on Log Cabin Road. Number 6, property line setbacks will be verified during building permit application review. Number 7, future land use is identified as ranchette. Large lot residential is a consistent use within this district. As the property sits today, there are no building permits on file, although there is a tiny home located on the subject property. There is also an on-site wastewater treatment construction permit on file with the Planning Department. The request was sent out for interdepartmental review. Emergency Services did have comments suggesting that the driveway that provides access be named. That would then allow proper house numbers to be assigned off the newly named road It would also aid in locating these addresses in an emergency situation. Staff's analysis of the request is that the Pennington County zoning ordinance does not specifically regulate the use of tiny homes or park models. Therefore, a conditional use permit is the most appropriate way to address this request. Staff will work with the applicant on the submittal of a road naming application. Again, the tiny home is on the property already, therefore a building permit will be required and any associated penalty fees will be required to be paid. And with that, staff recommends approval of conditional use permit 21-64 with conditions.
Thank you. Questions for staff on this one?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Mr. Chair. Jason, and I guess in my mind, I didn't think of it as a tiny home because of the 12-foot width. I mentioned that Brittany here just a few minutes ago. And actually, a number of years ago, 810, we approved one, if I remember right, on Old Hill City Road, just outside the jurisdiction of Hill City. But this is a pretty nice looking unit. Is it then, does that park model thing fall into place? Do we have a definition for that, or are we going to stick with tiny homes and then switch to something else?
So we have a draft ordinance right now that we're working on, and we address those in the same section but separately.
Okay.
Park models do have a chassis with wheels. Tiny homes will not.
Okay,
There are some different standards for each one of those.
that was my question. Thank you, Jason.
But
Further questions? Go ahead.
So, Jason, will this end up requiring a foundation or anything? Or can it just sit on the wheels?
not at this time. I think right now, the way that they have it sitting, as long as they have skirting in there, then they should be fine.
Further questions?
I have a question. You've been out there, of course. Log Cabin Road comes off of China Gulch.
Correct.
Okay, and I'm familiar, I snowshoe in this area in the winter, in Marshall Gulch and Union Hill. And then you've got Forest Service Road for a couple miles, and then you've got the log cabin, you're calling it again. This whole area has been cut off over the years. There's a gate, December 15th, the Forest Service closes towards Hill City, and there was one towards China Gulch that was closed until somebody bashed it. If the Forest Service puts that gate back in again, do these people have any access to this during the winter?
I guess I didn't note a gate when I went out
It's-
there off of Log Cabin.
Yeah,
I believe that there is one, but I don't recall seeing it out there.
Yeah, we'll just, I'll call you up once we get done with the staff questions. You can address it then.
That was my only question is, you know, not that it has anything to do with the price of cheese on this, but I'm just curious,
Sure.
so.
Okay.
Further questions for staff? You must be Jane. Jane, please come up. If there's no further questions for staff. Go ahead and state your name for the record.
Morning,
and then
Commissioners.
maybe-
I'm Jane Patno. We're the owners of this little park model home. In answer to your question, the Forest Service provides us with a key to unlock the gate. So we've never gotten it to work, but
Okay, well, I
there
was
is a
just
key
curious.
that's
Yeah,
there.
that's a good thing for you.
And they actually have not locked it in the last few years.
I
But
know they
yes, okay, yeah. So you're very familiar. We are up at the top of Union Hill. When we started this, this thing's on wheels. It's on a frame. It has a valid South Dakota license on the back. So we hired a man to pull it up and put it on our lot, thinking it was not much different than a fifth wheel, other than that it's a little larger and a little more gangly. But anyway, we didn't realize we needed a building permit. When we went to insure it, the insurance agent said, you need a finite address. So my husband started the process, came down, and they said, well, you need a building permit. Okay, we'll do a building permit. You need a variance. So we did the fee and the variance, and we sent out letters to the adjoining property owners, and we posted the sign, and we got all the stuff back. We brought it in, and then it was, no, you really don't need a variance. You need a conditional use permit. So they were very kind, and they said, we're going to apply the fee from the variance to the conditional use permit. And then we get it back, and it has all of these things on the conditional use permit. Our purpose was to very subtly leave a very small footprint up on the top of Union Hill. And now, as we move in, our neighbors are going to be overjoyed to know that they have to rename their driveway and change all of their house numbers. And there's another driveway down below that they're going to have to change their house numbers. These people have left for the winter. These are vacation homes up here, with the exception of one permanent resident. All the house numbers are posted on the roadway. I know you said they probably aren't, but they are. They're very visible from the roadway. Once you turn off Log Cabin Road, the first house is right there. It's easily seen. The next house, there's a big sign that says welcome to. It has the neighbor's name on it with their house address. I don't know exactly what the name is. But those are very, very, very well posted. I don't think emergency vehicles would have any problem finding them. This is a private driveway. If we post a sign there, every ATV and side-by-side is gonna think it's a public roadway. They're gonna come up, it's a dead-end road. So if it's possible, I think those are the things that we would object to. We're looking for one house number. I know that there are not enough. 4 of those lots up there are ours. We're not gonna build on those. We need one house number to get insurance for this tiny home. That's all we need. Questions?
I guess my question would be a follow-up with staff. I see the comment here from Emergency Services. These numbers are posted at the beginning of this common driveway,
They are.
and Emergency Services would rather the common driveway be renamed
But it's a private driveway.
to what? Do they?
They would have to come up with a road name and get it vetted through emergency services.
There's also a Forest Service easement there, so we're gonna be dealing with the Forest Service, and that takes, as you know, an act of Congress. So that's another issue that we're gonna have with this. So I don't even know if we could get this done in 60 days in dealing with the Forest Service, but this is a private driveway. It is not a road thoroughfare. So if we have to post a street sign down there, it's going to advertise our private driveway as a street, as a road.
Yeah. I have a question.
Go ahead.
Is there a road district out there? Or do you each?
I have no idea.
Okay, because
My
if you,
husband's dealing
if you
with
name
this.
it a street name and there's a road district, the road district would probably be obligated to take care of it, which if it's a private driveway, that doesn't make any sense.
Have we ever required a private driveway to be named in the past?
Yes, yeah. Whenever there's more addresses assigned off of a driveway, I believe 5 is the tipping point. Emergency Services looked at this as these properties, all 6 of these properties could potentially take access, 7, I guess, off of that driveway. And at that point, we won't have enough numbers to name or to assign addresses to every one of those properties.
Okay, if you look at the visual, the 4 lots starting at the left-hand side are our lots. We own those 4. The 2 residences that have house numbers already have already built on their lots. The other 2 at the bottom are accessed from another driveway at the bottom that has absolutely nothing to do with ours. So basically what we're asking for is 1 additional house number. There are already 2 house numbers up there, so it would be a 3rd house number. That's it.
So when we're looking at these, we look at the long range. So although you may own those 4 properties up there, you may sell them in the future. And at that point, somebody may want to put a house on them, and then we won't be able to address them because there won't be enough numbers in our
Which would
grid
be a
system.
great time to then name the driveway.
Well, we're at a bit of an impasse here then. The staff is recommending that that this be done based on Emergency Services being able to find you if there is an emergency. And so I don't know if I have a solution here. Is there a stipulation where we could put, that they provide the house number now next to the other 2 such that Emergency Services could find them, and then the stipulation goes along with conditional use permit that if the lots are subdivided at a later date, then the road get named? I'm trying to understand if there's a compromise here.
The lots already exist, so there would be no subdivision. I mean, they're out there, they're on separate properties as they sit today,
Okay.
so.
How,
They will
Mr.
not be
Chair?
built on in my lifetime. I
ahead,
can
Charlie.
tell you that right now.
But per se, there's no written, if they did get sold, there would have to be an access agreement developed somewhere. You can't just go by what's there now. In other words, they're using it as a common basis, just like people use common property to the Black Hills National Forest, which they never get writing on. or they later apply for it and wait 3 years to get it. I wonder too, either that or I think we ought to continue it so that they can talk to emergency services and see what would happen if they'd sell that and any accesses that would have to be granted in that sale. Gives them an opportunity to look at what's going on before they do it.
Yeah. I guess I'm inclined to recommend that we continue this. If you object specifically to this, I would suggest that we continue this item. That would allow you the opportunity to meet and coordinate directly with the emergency services folks, and if there's an alternate compromise that you guys can come up to and agree to together and bring back to the board, then we would do that.
That would be fine, but we are trying to get insurance on the tiny home, and we need an address to do that.
So as the conditions are written now, we would give them a temporary address
Okay.
as soon as possible, as soon as today, to get them moving forward. But within 60 days, we want the road named, and then we'd assign them a permanent address off that new road.
I don't know that we could do it in 60 days with the Forest Service and all the exclusions, and as I said, the homeowners are not there. They've closed up their cabins for the winter. Our closest neighbor lives in Chicago.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Charlie.
I'd move that we continue it, however, that we issue a temporary address so that they can move on, and hope would be to get it done in 60 days.
But we would continue it for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. When's the next meeting?
December 13th.
You may not be able to get it resolved by then, or you would at least meet with staff and we would come back and you might have a direction at that point.
Okay.
Is that agreeable to you?
Yes, so this would just be moved forward then? to the
13th
to
would
the
be
next-
a date I
We
would put in my
continue
motion.
to
December 13th.
the December 13th meeting.
Okay, all righty. Thank you.
I have a question. Is this driveway is platted separately?
Not knowing the legal term for platted, I don't know if you would say it's platted or not. It's an existing driveway that's
Did it
been
have a
there.
separate legal description for the driveway?
Do not believe so.
Mr. Chair, just a
Who
point of
owns the
order. We gotta get
driveway?
a second on the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Who is the owner of record of the driveway?
It's the property owners who own the land as it sits
Yes.
right now.
It's a private driveway. It is not a through road. We maintain it.
It's very hard to hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. We maintain the road. It is our private driveway. It is not a through road. It dead ends at our property.
Well, I'm not sure that answers my question, but thank you.
The driveway goes across multiple pieces of property. I'm assuming that there's an easement in place.
Yeah.
But each property owner physically owns the property that the road's on. Am I correct in that?
Right.
Yes.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Charlie?
I'm going to restate my motion. I made a motion. I thought we were going to get a second on it. I made a motion that we continue this, and the 13th is a date. Certainly, I would include in that motion so that they can meet with the emergency services people prior to the next meeting.
Second.
Sorry, I didn't catch that, Charlie.
Yeah.
Motion and second to continue this to the December 13th meeting. Further discussion. Noting none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 9.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brittany Molitor again. Item number 9 is Layout Plan LPL 2176 to reconfigure lot lines to create Tract 1, Tract 2, Tract 3, and Tract 4 of Rockerville Goldtown Subdivision. The applicant is Duck Bell. The owner is Rockerville Goldtown LLC, and the agent is DC Scott Surveyors. The property is located within Rockerville. It consists of 26.5 acres, and it is a planned unit development district with mixed uses. This was routed around through the interdepartmental review. There was a couple comments of concern, just that there will have to be approach permits obtained from the South Dakota Department of Transportation for access to these tracks. And there was one minor comment about plat heading from the Register of Deeds. This plat, let's see. actually cleans up a lot of the lot lines within Rockerville. So it actually creates a better platting process or a better lot configuration for the plan unit development. Because as it sits right now, there's a lot of internal lot lines with that plan unit development. And if you look at the one corner lot with that common lot B, there was a lot of small little lot lines and things, so it cleans this up. So staff didn't find any issue with this and is recommending approval with conditions.
Thank you. Questions for staff? Noting none, does anyone in the audience wish to speak on this item? Hearing none, seeing none, staff recommends approval of layout plan LPL 2176. There's 19 conditions. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion and second for approval. Further discussion? Noting none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. We're in item 10. Item 10.
Item 10 is preliminary plat PPL 2177 to create lots 1 through 21 of Block 7, lots 8 through 16 of Block 8, and lots 9 through 17 of Block 9 of Sunset Ranch Subdivision. The applicant and owner is JKRK Properties LLC, Laredo Holdings LLC, Ryan Caskey, and the surveyor is Long Branch Civil Engineering. The property consists of 383.42 acres. It is in a plan unit development district, and it's currently residential use. This was routed around through the interdepartmental review. The only item of concern came back from emergency services. One of the road names is not okay as it already exists within the area, so they will need to resubmit a proposed road name. Staff is working with the applicants and the applicant's agent to secure surety. We are just waiting for the highway department to improve the road construction plans. So the proposed subdivision is in harmony with the surrounding subdivision and conditions of approval of the plan unit development. So staff is recommending approval with conditions.
Questions for staff?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
coming off of the email from Michael Schindler, question he asked relative to these roads is meeting the 14 requirements, ordinance 14 requirements. He indicates that there's no one that actually checks to see if those roads are built to specifications. Is that true?
To my knowledge, I know the planning department does not go out and verify if the roads are constructed to that standard. Whether or not the highway department does it or not, I do not know.
Okay.
You had a question as well?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is the road district consulted ahead of time? I'm assuming they were since we received the letter from Mr. Schindler, and it sounds like he's involved with the road district.
Yes, and with this subdivision, there's quite a bit of, there's a road district and a sanitary district because they have a water system. And to follow up actually on Commissioner Drew's question, is because if they do have to post surety, we will have to verify that the roads are actually built to those to release the surety.
Okay.
Chair?
Go ahead, Charlie.
Brittany, the actual email that came in is more directed to the commissioners and the variance requests that come off of these conditions. Is that not correct?
That is correct. That is part of the
I
preliminary
noticed that. We
plan.
don't really, I think we're commenting as citizens, but I'm not sure we're commenting as a board. In other words, it's beyond the scope of what's being put in front of us.
Right, because there are 2 subdivision regulation variances that will be in front of the board on the 7th of
Thank you.
December.
Further questions for staff?
I have one.
Go ahead, Karen.
Is there adequate water out there? What system are they on?
Yes, they have their own community system, and I did receive a letter from the South Dakota Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources. I believe it's in the packet that their water system expansion was approved.
Okay.
Noting no further questions for staff, does anyone in the audience wish to speak on this item? Noting none, staff recommends approval of preliminary plat PPL 2177 with 14 conditions. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second for approval. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries. We're on item 11.
Cody Sack, sorry. Cody Sack, Environmental Planner. Item 11 is rezone RZ 21-30. The applicant and landowner is Paul H.H. Renke Family Trust. The agent is Renner Associates LLC. The location of the property is north of the intersection of Wilderness Canyon Road and Reflection Ridge. It involves 9.541 acres and is currently zoned suburban residential district. The subject property is being platted through the city of Rapid City to combine this 9.54 acres with the adjacent parcel to the east. The portion of property being rezoned does not meet the lot size requirement of the 10 acres for agriculture district. Therefore, the applicant will need to record the plat at Register of Deeds prior to the rezone being approved. So staff is recommending to continue rezone RZ 21-30 until a plat has been filed at the Register of Deeds.
Thank you. Questions for staff? Does anyone in the audience wish to speak on this item? Recommendation is to continue the rezone RZ 21-30 until the plat has been filed. Any idea on the time frame of that?
I'm not sure. They have to work with the city because the city is trying to get them to rezone prior to the plat being filed, but we can't rezone it because it doesn't meet the 10-acre lot requirement for agriculture. So they're stuck between a rock and a hard place right now.
So what's the path forward?
So the path forward is, and we as staff can contact the city and work with the city to see if they can add a condition to the plat that the plat, once the plat's filed, that the rezone goes through. Pretty much we just need the plat to go through before we can actually rezone the property, or they'd have to get a lot size variance and show a hardship on why they would need that lot size variance for the 9.54 acres.
But you just said the city wouldn't allow them to plat until it's rezoned.
That was a condition that they get a rezone with the plat. I'm not 100% sure if the city's going to actually force them to get the rezone prior to the plat. It's just it's a step with their platting process.
So we're continuing this item, or the recommendation is to continue this item, but we don't really have a date on when that will be resolved on the other end.
Correct. We'll work with the city and the agent on when that plat's filed, and then when that plat's filed, we'll bring it back and put it on an agenda.
You'd prefer to work it that way than select a date?
If the commission wants to select a date for like an update, we could say a month or so. Put it on like the second meeting in January.
Let me look for that date.
I want to make sure that the county process is not going to be their holdup in whatever it is that needs to get resolved.
It'd be January 10th or January 24th?
24th.
Would you say the 24th?
I just said that because I used to take minutes for that first meeting in January, and it can be very busy. They have a lot of things they have to vote on at the county commission.
I think we would appreciate a follow-up by January 24th if it's not resolved at the city.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
The city's involved because it's within the 3 mile.
It's in the 3 mile platting
Yeah,
jurisdiction.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Charlie.
just wanted to make sure that we include the 2 emails we received in that packet as well to continue on. Both these folks indicated they couldn't make a meeting, so.
Okay, noted. Go ahead.
So I may have missed everything. Where does this 9 acre, some acre property to the east fall into all this?
So currently what's going on is this property to the east right here on the board is agriculture district. This property is a separate property that's zoned suburban residential. They're taking this portion of that other property and combining it with this whole property, which if it's combined, it meets the 10 acre lot size requirement. It's just currently as it sits, that portion of the property that they're trying to rezone on the other property doesn't meet the 10 acre requirement. It's half an acre
That I
short.
understand, but when does all this take place within the thing? Is this the city has to do that?
The city has to approve the plat, and the plat has to be recorded, and then we can follow through with the rezone.
And that would bring in the 9 acre from the other one, or would that be a separate?
Correct. What'll happen is it'll be, that zone suburban residential, so it'll be dual zoned for a portion of time as agriculture and suburban residential, which, there's nothing in our ordinance that says a property can't be dual zoned, and there's nothing in state codified law that says it can't be dual zoned. So when we find out that that plat has been filed, we can bring that, they can continue with the rezone process and bring it in ag.
Interesting agenda items today. Questions for staff?
I have one. So if we would not approve this and they've spent the money getting the plat approved, that kind of doesn't make much sense.
Sorry, Brittany Molitor, Planning Director. I just want to make one comment so you understand why the rezone's in front of you. State statute requires that if a rezone is submitted to our office, it has to be heard within 45 days. So irregardless of if it's continued or whatever, it has to actually be heard. And because it doesn't meet the minimum lot size, we can't create an illegal, basically, zoning. So that's why it's in front of you. So to kind of get rid of some of the confusion.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to comment on this? Staff recommends to continue rezone RZ 21-30 until a plat has been filed with the Register of Deeds, and we've requested an update on this at the second meeting in January. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second?
Motion and second to continue RZ 21-30. Further discussion? Noting none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. We're on item 12.
Item 12 is Major Plan Unit Development Amendment, PU 21-15. It is to amend the existing plan unit development to reduce the common area from 73 acres to 9.67 acres. The applicant and agent is Douglas Schlabeck. The site location is Rushmore Ranch Estates and Mountain Meadows Estates off of Highway 40 and Rushmore Ranch Road. Currently, its own plan unit development, existing land uses is residential. There is no special flood hazard area on the property. A little property history. On July 14th, 1997, Plan Unit Development PU 9701 was approved and rezoned the subject properties to plan unit development. There have been several major and minor plan amendments since the original plan unit development was approved. This request was routed around for interdepartment review. There were no major comments or concerns that were received. Per Pennington County's per Pennington County zoning ordinance, PUDs require common area. There is no specific number that is required. The ordinance does not state. Rushmore Ranch Estates PUD requires 73 acres to be dedicated as common area. However, only 9.67 acres were ever dedicated as common area when the properties were developed, and that's Common Lot A and Common Lot B in Mountain Meadows Subdivision. So this condition of approval is not being met since there's not 73 acres that have been dedicated as common area. The applicant's request will bring the PUD into compliance and will prevent any further issues. So staff is recommending approval of Major Plan Unit Development Amendment PU 21-15 with conditions.
Thank you. Questions for staff? Go ahead.
Were they promised this when they purchased their land, that this would be a 73 acre common? Was there anything written as such, or was this just a good old boys thing?
That I'm not sure of. I don't know how the deeds and how the properties were sold. Per zoning, it requires the 73 acres. But like I said, when it was actually platted, none of it was ever platted for 73 acres. Only the 9.67 in Mountain Meadows was ever dedicated. So I don't know if at the sale they were promised common area. If they were, it's never been dedicated as common area.
How are the others? How are the 73 acres listed on the plat?
It's not. It's the two areas in Mountain Meadows. These two lots are actually, their legal description is Common Lot A and Common Lot B.
Okay.
They're the only common areas that are actually dedicated on any plat for all of the Rushmore Ranch plats. So what's gonna happen is, since that 73 acres is required, and there's 9.67, so that leaves 63 acres remaining for common area. It'll come down to the last 63 acres that are common, that'll have to be dedicated as common lot. So the last 63 acres that are undeveloped. So if someone bought their property thinking that they could build a house, and they come in and they're one of the last 63 acres, they either have to not build their house, or they have to go through this process to amend that PUD. That's what Mr. Slavik's trying to avoid in the future for people, and himself, he owns some land in there as well.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
So is there enough ground out there to provide 73 acres of common property, or has it all already been?
There's still 200 some acres that are undeveloped. So that 73 acres is still out there, but since it wasn't dedicated as common, someone could come and build a house on those and keep building until you get down to the 73. There's, like I said, there's only 2 that are actually dedicated as common.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Are there any covenants on this?
Rushmore Ranch was supposed to form a homeowners association. I don't believe they ever did, and if they did, it's not active anymore.
The large lots then that I see highlighted in the group with the other lots, those are just tract A, lot 1, something like that. They're
the unplatted balances of Mountain Meadows and Rushmore Ranch subdivisions.
Now it's becoming a little bit clearer. Further questions?
Can you point out common lot, or?
So common lot A or B.
Okay.
I can't remember. It's right here, and then the other one's right there.
Okay,
That's
thank
either
you.
A or B.
I guess my concern is, at this point, if we're pulling the rug out from under people that own property out there that might have been promised something.
That I'm not sure of. If they were promised something, the thing to consider is people in good faith bought those lots to build houses on, and if they're the last 73 acres, they're not going to be able to build a house on it unless they go through this process. So what the applicant's trying to do is just avoid any future problems with this in the future, so people won't lose their ability to build a house or build anything on their property.
The 73 acres, that was listed as a minimum acreage of common area be provided
Correct.
when this was originally done.
Yep.
Now the request is to go from 73 to 9.67.
Yep.
That's what's being asked for.
For a minimum of 9.67. If there's any future development in the area, like subdividing or anything, the planning commission or the board of commissioners can still require additional common area be dedicated for those plats.
Okay. Further questions for staff before I go to the speaker request forms?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure how to word it. When you run into situations like this, where it is, our ordinance doesn't require any specified commons, percentage, acres, anything. And then on this side, we have a developer that's going to file plating and this sort of thing. I assume there's no developer around to answer these questions now.
No, the developer went under and he didn't finish. So the second phase was Mountain Meadows subdivision, which has 13 lots. That was supposed to have 50 lots. And that's where you started seeing the common lots being noted on the plats, was that subdivision. Because what happened with the Rushmore Ranch Estates is that they approved the plat to be platted block by block, so that the block didn't have to come back in front of the planning commission and the board of commissioners every time. So they were able to just file, and they didn't get kept up on with the 73 acres.
I appreciate that. That's exactly where I'm headed. So we're here today there's X amount of lots platted. If we don't correct this at this time, the best we can, at some point, somebody actually could take a type of action to stop it and say, now, wait a minute, somebody's gonna lose some land here because there's 73 of it gotta be dedicated, whether we're gonna take it off of all of them, we're gonna take it off of 1, 2 that aren't. So we're trying to operate with our hands tied a little bit, but to correct the situation that's wide open for litigation, and we know that any more litigation is a pretty easy deal.
Yeah. So what would happen in the future if the planning commission today didn't approve that number decrease? Is whenever that 73 acres was finally hit and the next person wanted to come in and apply for a permit, they would have to either not build their house, not build whatever structure they wanted to, or they'd have to get all the 20 signatures again and come in front of the planning commission again to reduce that number.
Just for that one lot.
No, this is a major amendment. So they could do a major PUD amendment to drop it if their lot's 3 acres, to drop it another 3 acres, and then someone else could come in, and someone else could come in, and someone else could come in. Which is why staff's in favor of this request, because it's to drop it to what's existing there. And like I said, there was some concerns with emails about future development. If there is future development, the planning commission and the board of commissioners can still require additional common lot. That just says a minimum of 9.67 acres be required.
This cleans up the current issue.
It cleans up the current issue, and going forward, we don't allow it to be platted block by block by block. Any plat has to come before the planning commission and the board of commissioners.
Further questions for staff? The first speaker request form I have is from Doug Schleibel, if I have said that correctly.
I would just respond if anyone else
Has specific questions? Okay. So I only had one speaker request form.
Mr. Chair, can I throw something in? They had a similar one out in Somerset like this, where the contract, in fact, he even had passed away. Somerset one was first developed, I can't remember the gentleman's name, it's not relevant. But everything was platted with the commons in it and whatnot, and thank God that they weren't in a zoning and an ordinance type of thing, because some of the people had even tried to buy off some of the commons at that time and had made payments. And luckily, the decision was from their board of commissioners, that instead the commons, as they were developed currently, were going to exist, and that's it. And that was all. But I know that litigation-wise, this could be a nightmare for the poor folks that live there. Wouldn't you agree, Commissioner?
You're asking me to answer a legal question?
No,
Is that
I'm
correct?
just saying, I think, no, I don't want you to. In fact, that's a fair comment. But by the same fact, I don't want to, as a commissioner, turn my head away and not realize that these folks, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't situation.
Yeah, understood. Thank you, Charlie. I have a speaker request from Corey Brown. Please, sir, if you'd state your name again when you get to the lectern.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Corey Brown. I have a piece of undeveloped land, Rushmore Ranch Estates, Tract 78. I would very much prefer that this go through the way it's stated here, because there are quite a few of us who would like to build. I'm not ready to build a house out there yet, but I will eventually. And I don't want to be caught to the point where I'm stuck and I have this beautiful piece of land that I can't put my house on. So I just wanted to speak my piece and said I'd prefer this be reduced to what they're suggesting.
Okay, thank you. Further questions or comments on this?
I think we're going to have
We might have one. You can just come up, and if you state your name, get up there.
My name's Deborah Seek. I'm the manager of the LLC that owns the balance of that property. And the history of the PUD, the first gentleman, I believe, that owned it went bankrupt. It went through through a second owner. And he also went bankrupt, and we purchased this property along with Corey at an auction. And everything was just moved and moved and moved and moved, and suddenly these acres have landed upon the property that we currently own. The people who live in this development, first Rushmore Ranch Estates, and then the secondary phase was Mountain Meadows. They've maintained their water district, and they've maintained their road district. They've abandoned their HOA. The only people paying taxes on any of this property have been us privately. So the original HOA is that all of these people were to have paid taxes, maintained the HOA, and contributed towards these common acres, which they have not. And that's why this presentation for you, that we be able to use this property in the future and not be hindered and have to just repeat this process with these common acres request reduction.
Just to go along with what you say, in other words, there would have been taxes on 73 acres accumulating if they had been platted. But there
No,
is
we're
only-
paying them.
No, I'm saying you're paying on the 9 point whatever, but there could have been 73 acres sitting there that would have been taxed too, that you would have ended up paying for.
We are paying on all of this property.
Correct.
I don't know
I
if
meant from the
understood.
commons area, the 73 acres that was in question. The rest of it. The rest of the common areas.
Well,
I'll just withdraw it. I'm just saying that it could have been a lot more money, even worse on you. I can certainly side with what you're saying if you've carried that tax burden right now.
The HOA should have carried the
Right.
tax burden for all of the common acres. Oh, okay, thank you.
The HOA is not carrying the burden on the common acres. You are.
The HOA's been dissolved, I believe, since we thought maybe '07.
Further questions? Ann, go ahead and come up. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ann Slaughter. I'm one of the owners that has a house on the property, and I'm in support of this amendment. There has never been an HOA, to my knowledge. So the common areas, even if we were to not have this go through, we've got no way to manage the common areas. We've got no way to pay taxes. Every lot in there is privately owned. So and I don't think, at least I personally, having had HOAs in Virginia, I would prefer not to have an HOA. So I am in support of this as one of an existing homeowners. We've got Forest Service property. The minimum acreage size is at least 3 acres. We've got rural roads that people can walk their dogs on. So this way it supports the people that have bought the properties, years ago with a plan to retire and being able to put a house on it.
Who owns the 9.67?
Common lot, I believe you guys do.
Okay.
But every lot in there is privately owned. There's never been an HOA.
Okay.
That was all part of the planned unit development that sort of fell apart when the developer went bankrupt.
Thank you. Questions for Ann? Okay, thank you. Mindy Conant?
I am also an owner out there of a current property. I just wanted to clarify, somebody had a question about the association. We bought our home about 13 months ago, just went through the purchase process, and it was represented to us at that point that there was no association. We received no documents supporting an association through our purchase. So me as an owner, somebody was asking about pulling the rug out of people that were promised something. That's 13 months ago, and there was nothing represented as an association even existed. So kind of confirming that.
Thank you. Are there questions for Mindy? Would you come back up? I want to make sure I'm going to go through the facts as I have them in my head. You give me one of these or none one of these. Back when this was originally done, there was a PUD, and that PUD said there should be 73 acres. Yep.
Correct.
However, that 73 acres was never dedicated as a common area owned by an HOA or some other association group. Rather, it was left in the unplatted parcels that have been privately owned this entire time.
Correct. From me putting things together with Mountain Meadows is that was supposed to be developed, and that's part of the PUD. They were going to start dedicating that as they went, and then they fell. They went under, so they didn't get to that 73. They only got to the 9.67.
Okay. If you want to speak, you can come back up, please.
Ann Slaughter again, just to clarify, the Mountain Meadows, those big lots over there was the 2002 Battle Creek fire that came through there and destroyed much of the area there. The Forest Service made those roads in the Forest Service non-motorized, and those were replatted into large acreage rather than the plan that was the original plan to subdivide those big parcels over there because of the damage to the acreage from the large Battle Creek fire. So that's part of why that was never replatted. I think that's probably also why, because that property was pretty much destroyed, why the developer went under.
Okay.
Just to clarify.
Thank you. So there's never been an association that owns the common lots. And my next question is the 9.67 acres that they privately own that is listed as common, is there any restrictions on what they can do with that 9.67 acres?
I'll have Megan answer that.
Every question.
Yeah, so for common lots, you can't put a private residence on there. Sorry, I'm really sick, which is why I'm still wearing this mask. Typically, you can't put a private residence on that property. I've done significant research on this property and this PUD and this development because of all the legal issues that have arisen because of the developer and the way that all of this was set up. So originally, if all of this was done correctly by the developer, what would have happened is he would have done his PUD, he would have dedicated those lots, and then created an HOA to own and manage those lots. That did not happen. As far as I'm aware, an HOA was never created for this PUD, and that was the responsibility of the developer to get done. I believe that was actually one of the conditions of the PUD. I can't remember for sure, but I believe that was a condition of the PUD is that an HOA be created. The developer never did that. So what ended up happening is the developer goes under, all of these properties get sold in these auctions. And the people that purchase them don't realize that there are all of these restrictions on the properties that are being purchased.
Because they're within the PUD.
Because they're within the PUD and because they've been designated as a common lot. So there's a lot of issues with this PUD.
Go ahead.
Question. So if we bring this down to the 9 point whatever, those folks own it. Do they have to plat it as such with the restrictions and everything else, and they have to take care of the taxes in the future, or what happens with that?
It's already platted.
It's already platted.
So,
but the 9 acres is platted?
Yes.
Yeah,
By itself.
So I think this is common lot A and common lot B, one of the two. Those are already platted. Legal description is common lot A and common lot B. So they're already dedicated on the plat as common lot.
Those two parcels equal the
9.67. So, like I said, if there's future development, the planning commission, the board can require additional common area. If they don't choose to require that, those two lots meet what's currently, or those two lots meet what is being requested for this, and we'll bring that PUD into compliance.
And just for clarification, why we have to have the common lots, because I know that's probably a question that you guys have. Our ordinance actually requires that there are common areas. in PUDs. So that is why there has to be something. And that's why when they did the original PUD, they dedicated the 73. They said that there was going to be 73. Well, there's not. There's only approximately 10. So because it's a PUD, it has to have common space. If it wasn't a PUD, if it was rezoned to something else, they could completely get rid of that. But they're going to have to probably hire their own attorney to get that done, because I can't give them advice on how to fix this.
Sure.
Okay.
Come on up. You still have a question?
She was answering their question.
Oh. Yeah, are there any further questions? You had a,
Deborah C., just someone in the back had asked who's paying all the taxes. We're paying all the taxes, even on those 2 common lots.
and are you agreeable to reducing this down, knowing that those are listed as common lots now?
Yes, I
Yes,
am.
you are.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Charlie.
down the road, if this were to succeed and pass, and so far it's been an affirmative comment, and we don't have any restriction on how many acres in any PUD, whether it's 100-acre PUD or 1,000-acre, we don't have anything that says how many commons there has to be. Is that not correct?
That's correct. However, PUDs moving forward are just overlays. They're not going to be like full-on subdivision
Correct.
developments. So in the future, we won't have to worry about that part. It's just, this is under the old ordinance, so it has to meet the.
Okay, let's say the old ordinance plus in the future, seems to be a few doors open. I'd move that we go ahead and approve this so that we can clear the door to get it corrected. I think they can figure out how to correct it after they get what they need is directed in comments rather than 73 acres. So I would move to go with staff's recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second for approval of planned unit development. And it's 2115, right?
Yes.
In the packet, it says 0205, which I think was the original, but.
Oh,
So 2115 with the 11 conditions listed. Further discussion? Noting none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. We're on item 13.
The county board report, the Board of Commissioners concurred with the Planning Commission's recommendations from their November 8th meeting, with the exception of the tax increment finance district number 6 for Pink Cabin LLC, which was continued to the December 7th Board of Commissioners meeting.
I have a question about that.
Hold on.
I haven't watched it yet. I need to do that.
Could you hold on just a second?
Sure.
I was just going to let the group go out and have the conversations in the hallway
$1,500 live will save you a lot of money.
so you can continue. Go ahead.
Just wondered what the gist of the conversation was and why it was continued.
They just wanted to gather more information. There was quite a bit of public comment during the Board of Commissioners meeting from the neighboring property owners.
Oh. Thank you.
Looks like the galley has cleared out items from the public, number 14. Noting none. Items from staff, 15. No items from staff. Well, items from the membership, I would just like to thank the Pennington County staff for keeping us on our toes today. These were interesting items. I always appreciate when I have to really think through some of these things. Anything else? With that, the next item is adjournment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second for adjournment. Further discussion?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
What did you?